What's going on, everybody? Goofy Rexy here. Another exciting day to be talking Marvel Strike Force. Today's video, we're actually going to be diving into potential characters and toons that we could use in Dark Dimension 4. And to discuss that, I have my guy here with me, Thorn. Thorn, what's going on, brother? Say hi to the people.
Yo, Goofy. Good to be back, buddy. Hey, guys.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So I'll first preface it by saying this. Obviously, we don't know the full details on Dark Dimension 4 yet, so we're kind of just taking a quick stab at what the potential options could be for you to use in your Dark Dimension 4 kind of lineup, squad, team, whatever it is, right? So we're going to go from top to bottom. We're going to talk about the global characters, the cosmic characters, the city ones, and of course, we're going to go through the legendaries too as well. So Thorn, let's kick it off here with global. Obviously, I already have the global setting and everything popped up here, so let's kind of dive right on into it. All right, first, so to start off here, it's obvious that they're trying to say that the Pym Tech team is going to be the team that you're going to need for Dark Dimension. I think what we've kind of gathered so far is that it's kind of 50-50 within the community, in regards to the Pym Tech team. I'm not really convinced about it. I think that there's a lot of nodes where, they're probably going to have some failures or some hiccups. We've already talked about that. I think people have mentioned the Elsa node, based on the data mines that we see. I mean, obviously, right, the data mines are they're subject to change, but we can't ignore what we see in those data mines with those characters. Ghost Rider, Elsa's, those are really scary nodes, for the Pym Tech team. So what me and you were talking about was, other global characters that you could potentially use outside of the Pym Tech team. And we actually narrowed it down to a few characters. So Emma, Mr. Sinister, and then I think we were talking about potentially if you wanted to use a Pym Tech character, maybe Ghost. But if not, you could probably use Yo-Yo. But let's start off with Emma. I mean, obviously, what are your thoughts on Emma?
I think she's probably hands down the best non-legendary global character that we have in game. Just because of her kit with the cleanse, the mind control that's going to come in and hopefully kill one of the enemy each time she uses it. So she's got a very, very good kit, and that's probably my main pick outside of if you can't take a full Pym Tech team.
Yeah. And my thought on Emma was if you're gonna use Emma, then you might as well bring in kind of like her partner in crime in a sense at this point, which is Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister was big in a few nodes for Dark Dimension 3 for a lot of the community. Obviously, being able to get particular clones off certain characters. Looking through some of those global nodes, there are going to be a lot of characters like Blob. There's going to be characters like Colossus. So if you have, Blob could be big with the deflects. Colossus could be big with his taunt. And of course being able to apply, I think deflex, as well with his taunt. So there's a lot of really good sort of kit things that you could use with those particular characters, Sinister and Emma. Obviously they're great. But what are your thoughts, Thorn, on either Ghost or Yo-Yo? Like, what do you think? Like, who would you pick? Out of as a third character.
Yeah, well, like we mentioned, we're on the fence with the Pym Tech team. Are they going to be the Wakandans or are they going to be the symbiotes? We'll have to find out what happens there. But as far as Ghost goes, I think her kit, I'm on the fence whether she's a good standalone character or not, or whether she needs at least one or two other Pym Tech characters with her. So if you're sending in, if you're sending in two other Pym Tech teams, I think Ghost takes the pick for me. But if you can't really afford to take any of the Pym Techs, or they're not really built up for you, then I think Yo-Yo probably takes the cake for me over Ghost. I think Ghost is very heavily dependent on how many Pym Tech characters you can take in with her.
Yeah, I mean, her ultimate, right, will still take the 15%, which is probably going to be a big, if you T4 the ultimate, so it's probably going to be the biggest damage dealing ability that she'll have, similar to minn-erva. And she still does get the offense down with her passive ability. She doesn't need any Pym Tech allies there, but then the problem is, like, is she still as valuable? You know, do you still want to have Yellow Jacket in there too? The biggest thing is that even though she's taking that big 15%, she's not giving it to anybody else other than herself, you know, so it's not really benefiting the rest of the team. So you might as well probably have another character that can probably benefit, you know, the rest of the team there. I think we mentioned a few other characters that potentially could work. We don't have to go through, you know, kits and everything, but we mentioned Mystique, you know, just because of Sinister and Emma, if you're going to be bringing them in, Mystique is, you know, good because she does have synergy with Emma, synergy with Mr. Sinister. You know, and then we also talked about, but that might actually be a little bit too much though if you're looking at mutant gear like micro and mini uniques and things like that. And we also mentioned Zemo too. Zemo could be an option, you know, also as well, that you could kind of use for that global team. But like I said, I think the other two biggest characters are going to be Emma, outside of but since you can't lose legendaries, Emma using Mr. Sinister, potentially using Ghost with Ghost or Yo-Yo, maybe Mystique, maybe Zemo, and maybe as time evolves, we'll figure out some other characters too that could work with that team. All right, so for our going into our cosmic options, you know, obviously the biggest one that we thought to talk about here was minn-erva. So minn-erva is kind of a mainstay, right? Dark Dimension 2, she's your biggest damage dealer. Dark Dimension 3, she's not your biggest damage dealer, but she's your second biggest damage dealer next to Phoenix, you know, and of course, you know, Dark Dimension 4, we're kind of thinking that 15% ultimate is still going to carry a lot of weight, you know, when it comes to your Dark Dimension 4 run too as well. So, you know, minn-erva for me was like the obvious heck yeah. And then what were our other options here? We talked about Hela.
Thanos is an option, obviously, to feed minn-erva.
Yep.
But yeah, I think minn-erva is going to be, unless we get other toons and we get more information, I think minn-erva, based on what we know now, I think she's probably going to be the best cosmic toon to take in, just predominantly just for her ultimate.
Yeah.
if you can't do any damage, at least you can chip away at it with 15% health each time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hela, Thanos is a good option to feed her. It depends how many kills you're taking,
right,
and how much energy he's going to be feeding her. But
yeah,
but now Thanos has other options that can accompany him. So the likes of Cull Obsidian, who can help protect Thanos a bit more, gives him that buffs as well. Then you got the likes of Proxima or Corvus. I would say Proxima hands down over Corvus because of the offense down that she provides, and the stun that she has as well. So with those two accompanying Thanos, I think that's a pretty good mix for the cosmic section.
Yeah. And I think we kind of spitballed this a little bit, you know, potentially having some cosmic is tough because a lot of there's some really good cosmic characters that are legendaries, you know, like Ebony Maw, you know, so those obviously aren't options. Black Bolt, like, obviously aren't options that you have available to you for those cosmic nodes. But we talked about, you know, some other Asgardians too, you know. I feel like maybe Thor is an option, but maybe you want somebody else for protection. I think maybe Sif is probably a better option just as a protector, somebody that can just take on some extra hits, you know, and of course she's relatively hard to bring down. So maybe she's decent, you know, as an option, you know, for their cosmic team too, but it's hard to say, you know, like I said, we're spitballing, theory crafting here and trying to figure out what potentially could work, you know, even though we don't even know exactly the specifics yet. But, you know, I'm thinking, Sif is probably a good option. I would say Loki is not a good option just because of health stats, and Thor might be a little bit of a liability too in some ways. But I mean, what do you think about Asgardians?
Asgardians is a good shout, mainly because before we got the Black Order team, a lot of people were focusing like pre-Black Order, they were focusing on Asgardians for Dark Dimension 3. They obviously don't go as well as the Black Order in Dark Dimension, but we're not having Ebony Maw in these cosmic lanes because he's legendary, so there might be some sort of viability for... they might not clear as quick as if we had Ebony Maw, obviously,
Right.
but with the Thor passive hitting every time he gets charged up, Loki is fine, but I think you're predominantly using him for that mind control with the defense down, and hoping you can take out a high priority target. But yeah, I think Sif's a good protector. I quite like her. She does a lot of blocking. She's quite underrated as a tank.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you have Sif and if you have Minn-erva, Thor, and Hela, you've probably got a decent team in there as well. So there are quite a few options, I think, whether you want to go the Black Order route or you want to go the Asgardian route.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's move on to our city, section. All right, so obviously, right, for city, it's clear. It's gonna be the symbiotes. That's who you would ideally like to take in, but in reality, brother, I mean, how in the world, Thorn, are you going to bring in the entire symbiote team, to your Dark Dimension 4 run? So I think you're probably going to have a few other options available to you. I would say, obviously, the main ones, right? The main one to start off with was obviously Symbiote Spider-Man. It doesn't work. The symbiotes don't work without him. So Symbiote Spider-Man is obvious number one character for City. You also do have Carnage. They just work really well together. At that point, if you want to bring in a third character, a third symbiote, then maybe you go with Venom and Anti-Venom. And then probably as a fourth character, you're probably going to want to look elsewhere. So I think we were kind of theory crafting some ideas here in regards to who you could probably bring in as a fourth character, because you need at least four, right? The fourth character would be maybe Ghost Rider. You're still going to run into some issues, though, with Ghost Rider, because you're going to have to bring in the full Cosmic team, so you're probably still going to run into some issues with Ghost, but you might be a better city option for you. And then you had another pick too, which I thought was actually pretty interesting. I'll let you explain that one.
So there's a few other options for me. Squirrel Girl, I think, is a good shout. She's also bio, so if your issue is more Alien Spore and you can't get enough Alien Spore, because you're going to need 125 Alien Spores to get all 5 symbiotes in. 125.
Oh my god! This is insane.
Yep. So if your issue is Alien Spores, but you got the bio gear, then I think Squirrel Girl is probably a really good shout with her cleanse and stuff like that. Otherwise, for Dark Dimension 3, I took in Merc Lieutenant because by that time I had tech. By the time I got to City, I had tech build up because I only needed Minn-erva was the only tech for Cosmic, which will be the same here. So by the time I got to City, I got enough tech again. So I brought in Merc Lieutenant, which wasn't too bad because of the offense up, the speed up, and that kind of helps the symbiotes a lot as well. If the symbiotes do a lot more damage with the offense up, they take more turns because they get more characters into red. Plus, they're going faster because of the speed up. So there are other options, I suppose. Ghost Rider was decent as well in Dark Dimension 3 for me. You don't necessarily benefit from his passive gaining the charges because you need people to die. But then at the same time, you don't want people to die. So maybe Anti-Venom could be pairing. If either Carnage or Symbiote Spider-Man dies and he brings them back, that will benefit Ghost Rider for that particular node. But the good thing is, if it still works the same way, Ghost Rider's charges carry on the following day, so you don't lose the charges, which is decent. So you're right. You are coming from Cosmic, which uses a fair number of Mystic gears. But if you can afford the Mystic, Ghost Rider, I think, is a valid shout for me as well.
Yeah. And obviously, Squirrel Girl, I like her. If just in case your Alien Sports is your issue and you can't get anti-venom or venom in, if you choose to go with Ghost Rider, Squirrel Girl is a really good option. She does clear, debuffs too. So, she does have a cleanse for that team. So she might work. The only thing is that here you are again with more bio gear that you have to invest or into another character. So, but what are you going to do? I mean, it feels like 95% of the good characters are all bio. I'm kidding, of course, but it just feels like that's really pretty much what it is. Like 95% of the characters are all bio gear. What are you going to do? But hey, you have Squirrel Girl as an option. Any other city options that we had? I mean, I think those are probably like the 5 ones, obviously, other than Scream and and Venom and whatever. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else we might have for city. I think that was probably it for the most part.
I think for the most part that is probably it, and it's just one of those things that you may not even go in with 5 characters by the time you get to city, and if you can run with just the 3 symbiotes, you probably could possibly manage like you could with Dark Dimension 3. Again, we'll have to see.
Yeah, but 3 symbiotes and one other character, just because they
say one random.
Because they say you have to have 4, so it's like, okay, I guess we'll have 4.
But yeah, I think Carnage and Symbiote Spider-Man hands down need to be the 2, and it's hard to pick which of the 2 you need to bring in first, because they both are quite needed for the symbiotes to work. You need Carnage for his passive for the speeds up, and you need symbiotes for the heals. So Symbiote Spider-Man. So I think both of them hands down. And then I think for me, it then comes down to whether it's anti-venom or venom. I think Scream unfortunately misses that, which is probably more a liability. And then it's probably going to come down to Red Stars, or if you've got a 7 Red Star anti-venom over there, we're probably looking at bringing him in. But Venom's ability block and his spread could also be quite useful as well. So I think it's going to come down to individual power levels and who you have better out of anti-venom and venom.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're slipping into our legendaries. All right, so lastly, our legendaries. We're finally here. Let's talk about the legendaries, because you're not going to be able to use them until you get to the last 3 nodes in Dark Dimension, based on what it looks like in the data mines. We don't know, subject to change, but based on what it looks like in the data mines, this is probably what we're going to be dealing with here. All right, so the legendary roster is as is right now. As you can see, you have Black Bolt, you have Ebony Maw, Star-Lord, Phoenix, Invisible Woman, Shuri, Mags, Iron Man, Nick Fury, Doc Ock. So I think we decided that we thought, right, that the best ones to probably at least start off with was obviously going to be Phoenix again. Yeah. Obviously Maw. But then then potentially Black Bolt. But if his damage is not going to go very far, like it did in Dark Dimension 3, might not be worth bringing him into Dark Dimension 4 either. So he can be kind of an iffy third one. But I think, I think you mentioned, I don't have Doc Ock, but I think you mentioned that Doc Ock might actually be an integral part, of the legendary team for Dark Dimension 4.
Yeah, so I quite liked. I've got Doc Ock, and I think he's at 5 stars for me. And he's quite a good character actually. He's with his ultimate that removes buffs, and if there's any debuffs, he then extends it. I think that's a really good ultimate to have. Yeah. Plus, you get a free additional character with the special, and he gives out regens on his special as well. So in my mind, if you're going to just send in legendaries, I think he's going to be probably up there in choices after, obviously, Phoenix and Ebony Maw. I think those 2 are hands down. And then Doc Ock is, in my mind, probably one of the better options after that. We did speak about Shuri as well. Shuri's, she's a staple in most people's raid teams as well, and the fact that you get the defense up plus the heals to keep Phoenix going, to keep Ebony Maw going, I think she's a viable option. Plus she also provides that an additional defense down, so you got Ebony Maw's defense down. You could probably, when that wears off, you can use Shuri's defense down and keep your team going for longer. So I think she's also a good shout as well. I agree with Black Bolt. I'm going to wait and see what happens, how those nodes are, because he's all damage, and if his damage isn't really going to do anything, or if he's not finishing characters off with his passives, because
he can't clear a debuff. You can't clear a debuff with that basic, though. With that basic, you know.
Yeah. He's really good character. Doing much if he's not making a dent. And maybe you're better off sending someone else in.
Yeah, and y'all may chastise me for this one, and I don't care. I think that a character that could make a resurgence is probably Star-Lord, all right? I think Star-Lord, y'all gotta show my man some love, all right? Y'all gotta show Star-Lord some love, man. He's the only dancing legendary that we have. He's the only dancing toon that we have. As a matter of fact, y'all better show him some love.
He's grooving.
I think honestly, Star-Lord could potentially be a sneaky good character, just like minn-erva, right? Giving that little extra energy to Ebony Maw this time, as you know, so that his ultimate, because his ultimate's probably going to be the biggest damage drain, right, from that team. So using him again, feeding that energy over to Ebony Maw, allowing him to do that ultimate more often, you know, I think is going to be kind of sneaky good in my personal opinion. I think Star-Lord might make a resurgence, y'all. I'm not sure. I think Star-Lord might make a resurgence. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, you may not be wrong. When you first mentioned it off this recording, I looked at you and went, Star-Lord?
Yeah.
but I mean, we can only send in 4-5 legendaries. And to be honest, I agree. It's going to be an endurance race rather than the sprint race. So Black Bolt may not make the pick because of that. And having Star-Lord feeding Ebony Maw and just slowly chipping away at it may be the way to go.
Right.
So you may be onto something here.
I might be. We didn't even mention Nick Fury. Nick Fury is like, no, Iron Man, who are we kidding? Magneto could have some utility, but not really I don't think he really stretches that far here. We talked about Invisible Woman being an option. She does do a lot of great things in her kit. You know, obviously the barrier, the defense up, you know, the offense down, you know, clearing stealth as well with her, you know, with her special ability while she's giving defense up, giving immunity to one of the characters too. So a lot of really good things, you know, that she could do with her kit. But the problem is her cooldowns are really long, and I feel like you're gonna have to wait. You know, if you're going in and getting one-shotted on a couple times again, you're gonna have to wait 2-3 days before you can even really get that barrier up again. So that's just the reason why we're like, maybe not Invisible Woman for this one.
Oh, I can tell you first-hand experience in Document. It was painful.
Yeah.
like that first turn, like the first time you use it, oh, it's so good. And then you're waiting forever for it to come back, and by that time, it's 3 or 4 days down the line.
Yeah, for sure.
Good character, cooldowns.
Yeah. A little rough on the cooldowns. But all right, guys, listen, this is it. This is our list. Potential characters here. We don't know. Like I said, we might be wrong. Because things might change by the time Dark Dimension 4 comes around. This is just a fun theory crafting video that we're doing here to just to start some conversation. Here. But listen, Thorn, appreciate you, man. Make sure that you guys check out Thorn_7 Gaming on YouTube, and then also Thor_7 on Twitch. I'll leave all the links down below so you guys can go check them out too as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate you. Be blessed and be safe.